Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. I'm here today with an upgraded version of non-fiction book recommendations for you this non-fiction November. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about 15 non-fiction books that you must read, which are amazing, which will give you different insights into the topics that they are talking about. Some of these are my absolute favorites. I haven't been able to shut up about them. So I'm hoping that if you have a non-fiction November kind of plan, if you plan to read non-fiction this November, then you will pick some of these books if you haven't already. And if you have, I'll be all the more happier for it because we can gush about these books together. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this video and let me share with you the 15 non-fiction book recommendations that I have for you today. First up is In Other Words by Jhumpa Lahiri. I don't know what you were expecting. This was like top. And this is Jhumpa Lahiri talking about her own experience with language. Jhumpa Lahiri moved to Italy. She started learning Italian and she has this whole passion for the language. She began learning it. She began writing in Italian. She began translating Italian works. She began translating English words into Italian. It's a very short book, but in this book she talks about her obsession with the language, her love for it in the form of metaphors, and she takes examples. She talks about her experiences about learning a foreign language and how people treated her and how she was accepted or rejected, or she was made to feel like she didn't belong to the language or the language didn't belong to her. And since I'm learning a new language myself, it resonated with me so much. I identified with the book, with whatever Jhumpa Lahiri was saying so much. It's just brilliant. Jhumpa Lahiri is brilliant. I mean, when I read Whereabouts last year, I fell in love with her writing, but this was another level. I'm now obsessed with her writing. There's no two ways about it. Next is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and I didn't think I would be recommending Virginia Woolf books ever because my experience with her works hasn't been that great. It didn't start off that great. I started reading To the Lighthouse and I DNF'd it like just a few pages in. But this is a book that's fabulous. I see all the hype around Virginia Woolf and it worked for me as well. And in this book she is talking about how women writers are not accorded the importance, they are not accorded the opportunities because of sexism and misogyny, and the difference in the way society treats women writers and men writers. And it was just one eye-opening page after the other. I just kept grinning through it all because of the way Virginia Woolf handles all of this. She has this witty, sarcastic way too. I mean, sometimes she can be pretty stoic, she can be pretty straightforward, but in some other places she has this way of putting these things across that will bring a smile to your face. And I absolutely love this. This is one of my favorite books of 2022, and I can't wait to read the next book in this, which is 3 Guineas, and I don't know when I will read it, but it's on my DVR. Next is, of course, Remnants of a Separation by Aanchal Malhotra. This is about partition and about the after effects of partition told through tangible objects. She has told the stories of I think 22 people and about things that they brought to India or took over to Pakistan during the partition, and the memories associated with it and what happened at the time that they were fleeing either country, and the whole atmosphere of sorts. And as the stories are being told, you are transported back to those times, and it just gives you chills because the partition happened at such a scale. So many people lost their lives and so many people were displaced. They're just turned out of their homes, and it will make you cry. Aanchal Malhotra's writing is that poignant, while keeping a strong hold on reality and while being kind and compassionate to the people she is talking about and to the reader as well. it's very beautifully written, and I love Achar Malhotra for that. And this is one book that I will never shut up about. I will never stop recommending. I feel like everybody should read this book. Everybody. And I have said this 10,000 times in the past 1 year, and I will say this a million more times. That's a lot, but that's how I feel. Next is Quiet by Susan Cain. This is a book in which Susan Cain talks about how introverts face obstacles on a daily basis from society, and how society is built for extroverts. It's built so that it is easier for extroverts to gain success than introverts. But in this book, she also talks about the strengths and weaknesses of introverts and the strengths and weaknesses of extroverts, and how if these two can work around all of this, and if they can come together, if all of us can make some adjustments for the other person, then things are going to be so much better, so much easier for everybody, and society can function even better. People can become even better than they were before. And I absolutely love this book. I fell in love with it. Next is Seeing Like a Feminist by Nivedita Menon. This is about feminism, obviously, and about how to see through the feminist lens. And it also talks about how in India it is very important to remember the intersection of feminism and caste. So we also need to understand that these two have to be brought together, and we have to see society keeping these in mind, because a lot of things shift and change when this caste also comes into the equation. It's not exactly a discourse on how to see like a feminist, but it's about how society is and how it treats different people, how it treats men, how it treats women. For example, if men were the ones menstruating, society would be like, we bleed every month, so we are the stronger gender. But women are menstruating now, so what is it? Are you PMSing? It's stuff like that. So she has brought this together in a fabulous way, and this is also one book that I don't talk a lot about on my channel, but I do recommend with all my heart. Next is Art Matters by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Chris Riddell. This is a short book. You can finish it in about half an hour. But in my opinion, it is super important because of what it talks about creativity, and how it talks about art and how it matters, how it talks about how we should look at our own creativity, how society treats art and creativity, and it's fabulous. I mean, there's not a lot I can say about this book because it's so short. It's great, it's short, but it's very, very impactful, especially for artists and creators. It's an important read. Just because it's short, don't write it away, read it. Next is a book by a favorite author, and that is Matt Haig, and the book is Reasons to Stay Alive. In this book, Matt Haig talks about his own depression, his own fight with depression, and he lists out the reasons to stay alive that he sees in his life, as well as in the way he sees the world. It's a gut-wrenching read, it's heartbreaking, but it also gives you hope, and that is what Matt Haig's writing does for me. He does this thing where he makes you cry, but he'll also give you hope. And I'm here like, okay, thank you, give me 10 more books by Matt Haig, and I'm going to read them, I'm going to cry, and I'm going to look forward to the future with hope. It's strange, but it's true. Matt Haig has that kind of power. Reasons to Stay Alive was the first ever Matt Haig book that I read, and I'm so glad that I started reading it with that book. It started off with a bang. It just gets better with every book. It can be a little sad, and with talks of his depression and his thoughts of suicide, but that's the thing, he talks from experience and he does give you reasons to stay alive. Next is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. In this book, Rebecca Skloot tells us about Henrietta Lacks, whose cells, I think tumor cells, were used for research, and the HeLa cells became the foundation to a lot of discovery of cures. But Rebecca also talks about how Henrietta Lacks didn't know all of this. All of this was being done without her consent, and even though this has happened, even though the world should be very grateful to Henrietta Lacks and the family as a whole. Henrietta Lacks's family still lived in poverty a long time after this went viral, and it just made me so angry because it's not just about consent, it's also about people actually arguing that those cells they had complete power over, and that those cells didn't belong to Henrietta, and that taking consent from her was not needed, or they didn't even think about it of that sort. I did a whole blog post about it. It's very long. It could be a little rambly, but I feel like I put down all of my thoughts very well in that because it was fresh at the time. If you'd like to go check that out, link will be in the description box below. Next is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think I read it last year, and I absolutely loved it because of how it talks about making little changes to your life through creating small habits. You don't have to make big changes to your life immediately to have an effect on the quality of your life. Just make small changes, atomic habits, small habits, small changes, and it will be super beneficial for you. I did a full video about this. I think it was for my channel members, which I used to do last year, but I had to stop it. But this is one book that I really love. There's nothing like very world smashing about it. There's nothing out of this world, nothing that you don't know. Maybe a couple of things, but sometimes, like I say for a couple of other books as well, like Make Time for example, you just need to be told these things again. You just need to repeat yourself. It's like when you're a child, you keep writing the same letters over and over again so that you get a hang of what it is about. So if you keep reading it, it will sit in your mind. Next is Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism and You by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. It's a very short book. I got an ALC from Libro FM and I listened to it and it was great. Jason Reynolds narrates this himself and he talks about racism and how, you know, these American heroes were back in those times, what they did in their daily lives, and how when people revere them for the things they have done for the country, they don't see the things that they have done against other people. And he says this in a very snappy, very witty kind of way, which I absolutely loved. I think a reread is pending. Re-listen is pending. I have the ALC obviously. It takes no crap from anybody. It just gives out truth after truth after truth in the best way possible. Next is Queeristan by Parmesh Shahani, and in this book Parmesh Shahani talks about how Indian workplaces can be made better and can be made friendlier for LGBTQI plus people. I spoke about this in my last year's Nonfiction November and No Makeup November vlog. I really liked the way Parmesh Shahani has put out everything. He has put out everything in a very a systematic, structured manner, and he has done interviews with different people, different CEOs, different heads of organizations, and the way he has brought about change in his own organization, Godrej, and it's very eye-opening, and there's a lot to learn from this as well. It will take some time for you to read this book because there are a lot of facts in here, but it is an important one and I highly recommend it. Next is Mythos by Stephen Fry. In this book, Stephen Fry talks about how the Titans came into being, how the gods came into being. We are not yet there at the demigods that we know, but there's a lot of interesting stuff, and in classic Stephen Fry wit and humor, he brings this all to a close in a fantastic manner. I read the book and I highlighted furiously. I was like, this person, but there are so many characters in the Greek mythology that it becomes difficult for you to remember. But Stephen Fry has done this thing where even though you don't remember, you will have an idea of what he is talking about, of which person he's talking about. He has this way of setting context. Even though I of the 100% of the book, I think I remember like 30% or something, but that's because my own memory is like a traitor to me. But otherwise I feel like Mythos is a great book. I left Heroes and Troy behind in India but I'm sure I will be able to get my hands on it here at the library, and I cannot wait to read them. Next is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari, and in this book Yuval Noah Harari talks about a brief history of humankind. He puts it out in a very raw manner. He's not mincing his words. He just puts it out there and tells the truth about how humans have been a destructive race since day one, and despite everything that they have achieved, there's also a lot of bloodshed and a lot of destruction that they have left in their wake, and it's still going on. It's still ongoing. If you keep aside the fact that he is talking about human beings in this manner, some people say it's vitriolic, but I feel like it is the truth of how human beings are. And yeah, I did a full video review of this book. I think this was a subscriber pick 2 years ago, and I remember I had a lot of fun reading this. It was very informative, but it was also a very tedious read. It is a tedious read, and you'll have to keep a lot of patience while you're reading it, but I would recommend that you read it. Perhaps read along with the audiobook. Listen to the audiobook while you're following the text, and that is going to be very helpful for you. I would actually recommend that you read it like that, although it completely depends from person to person. Next is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb, and this is about Lori Gottlieb's, it's a memoir in which Lori Gottlieb talks about her being a therapist and her having her own therapist, and the importance of keeping those two lives separate, and also about how each of these lives affect her, because she absorbs a lot of things that her patients are saying, and it's about how she should deal with it, and about how she talks to her own therapist, because I think there's something like a confidentiality clause or something, which she cannot take these stories and talk to her therapist about. It's a very positive book. It's plain, simple, vulnerable also, but it also gives you a lot of hope while you read it, because while we see our therapists as dumping grounds, these therapists are also people. They also need people to talk to. I mean, it's I didn't find it to be something amazing, something out of this world, the writing, I mean, but it's a great book for you to start reading if you are looking for something about mental health. Last but not the least is A Taste of My Life by Chitrita Banerjee. This is a very short memoir told in terms of food. Chitrita Banerjee is one of India's most revered food writers, and in this book she talks about her relationship with food, her relationship with people, the memories associated with certain recipes, and the way she brings about all of this is very poignant. It makes you emotional, and it did that for me. I read this earlier this year, I think, and I was an absolute fan of the way she wrote, because in such a short book, to bring about all of this, to let people into her family, to see how her family has been through a recipe and through moments associated with that, and through her relationship with this food and with people associated with those moments. It was a fabulous read. In hindsight, I loved it even more, and I hope that you will pick this book up, you will read it, and I hope that you will like it or love it as much as I did, if not more. So those were the 15 non-fiction book recommendations that I had for you this non-fiction November. Which of these have you read? Which ones do you want to read? What books are you reading this non-fiction November? Do you do non-fiction November? Do you like non-fiction as a genre? And which are your favorite non-fiction books? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.